Morning everyone. My name is Matt Hammond and I'm a building surveyor for Warwick District Council. My daughter was born 3.5 years ago with congenital hyperinsulinism, and she was born in a special care at Warwick Hospital and then moved to Birmingham Children's Hospital and then on to Great Ormond Street Hospital. And just going to do a little preview of our little journey that we've had so far. So there's 3 parts to it. What is hyperinsulinism, which I hate saying, so we call it CHI. There's a bit about Scarlett's journey, and then about the HI Fund, the Children's Hyperinsulinism Charity, and our current links with Findacure. So the body has a unique mechanism of controlling blood glucose. When you have high blood sugars, the pancreas detects this and then produces insulin, which reduces the level down. And then obviously when it's low, the liver releases glycogen, and that results in you having normal glycemia. In CHI patients, the pancreas is blind to the blood sugar level, so whatever the conditions in the body, the pancreas continues to produce insulin, which results in persistent hyperglycemic episodes. If this is not diagnosed early enough, then the children can have difficulties and delays, and that means they can suffer permanent brain injuries, cerebral palsy, or even, in the worst case scenario, death. There's 2 main types of hyperinsulinism. There's diffuse and focal. Diffuse is the type that my daughter has, so it affects the whole of the pancreas. Focal is localised and offers a chance of cure. What they mean by that is actually the tissue, if it's removed, can actually be taken away and the rest of the pancreas is healthy. So if you actually remove the diseased tissue, then you end up with a healthy pancreas and the children can actually be cured. It is slightly misleading in that, I'll show you a slide in a minute, the PET scans they carry out, when they see a focal point on there, it actually can have widespread tentacles throughout the pancreas. So when they actually go to surgery, they see the main focal point, but actually the whole of the pancreas needs removing anyway. So focal is a little bit misleading in terms of the treatment of it. So this is a typical flowchart for the treatment of CHI. What they do first, they try them on diazoxide. If they're responsive to that, then they'll generally be sent home. The most acute patients carry on down the flowchart. So yeah, they do genetic testing. There are 11 known faulty genes. If they pick up one of those, then they have an idea from the gene what the actual type of HI they have, and they'll carry on down the treatment profile. With my daughter, she was diazoxide unresponsive. We had a genetic test done and that came back unresponsive, which I think you end up in the middle, is that the middle stage? Carry on down, and then we end up with what's known as an 18F Dopa scan. What happens there is they make some radioactive isotope called 18F Dopa. It's made in Manchester, it's shipped down, and then the children meet the radiation at UCLH where they have a PET scanner. It's injected into the children, and what happens, they get scanned for half an hour in the PET scan, and I'll show you some images in a second, and it's the gold standard for knowing what type of HI that they have. And obviously based on that we continue down the flowchart. Sometimes they need to have the surgery and have the total pancreatectomy, another word I hate, or that they obviously, we have this new Sirolimus treatment. So this is a bit about Scarlett's journey living with the disease. So she was born, actually on the day it was called Super Saturday in the Olympics in London. We were meant to go to one of our friends' wedding anniversaries, and we just arrived there, and Kelly rang me from the toilet saying I've got some serious issues. So we went over to Warwick Hospital, and within an hour and a half Scarlett was being delivered, and she was put in a special care baby unit as a precaution. And it was noticed very soon that her blood glucose levels were very low, which there can be in the first few days of life, and she's given IV dextrose via her umbilical cord. So this is Scarlett. As you can see, using the umbilical cord to put high levels of dextrose in the body. It's the best way of doing it. When you try and put dextrose into the body, your veins start collapsing and it becomes more and more difficult, so they use the umbilical cord as it's the most straightforward route to do that. She was in Warwick Hospital for 18 days. Her blood glucose levels remained persistently low. She was under the management of the University Hospital, Coventry and Warwickshire. So they were ringing her up and asking her, and they couldn't offer any advice. So then we were told that we need to go under Birmingham Children's Hospital. They couriered some diazoxide, which is the first sort of treatment, and she remained unresponsive to that for 18 days, and they decided that they'd take her over to there, which is, there's a next picture where she's putting a little, whatever that device is called, the spaceship or whatever. So she's put in there, and it's quite a nervous moment as a parent. She gets travelled away to Birmingham Children's, so we go and meet there at a very late hour in the evening. She's continued on diazoxide. There's a cannula put in her head because the IV access starts to get very serious now. Kelly's a hairdresser, my partner, so cutting off someone's hair when they're very young is absolutely distressing. Her lowest blood sugar at this stage, even though she's under high level of treatment, is 1.2, so the level of insulin production is incredible. So what they like to do is put in a central line. This allows them, rather than having very high doses of, very high volumes of treatment at low doses, they put them on very low volumes of very high doses of glucose to keep them stable. The registrar, we took up this whole of his time for 3 days there, and I thought he was going to have a fit and fall over, and he just said that we needed to go to Great Ormond Street Hospital, which was another big move. So on the Saturday morning, we had the central line put in on Friday lunch, and she was moved to Great Ormond Street Hospital by ambulance. There's a central line going in. It's inserted by the neck, and it goes right down by the heart. And I say they put loads of connections on the end so they can take blood very easily, and also give a very high dose of dextrose to keep her stable. So she arrives on the rainforest ward, the specialist ward. We met the HI team and we discussed a plan for Scarlett, and treatment on diazoxide begins again. We have genetic tests which take, at the time, 6 weeks, I think it's 2 weeks now, they're much faster. And we just carry on a treatment. What they try and do, they get them stable, and then they try and wean them down to doses which allows them to be in a position to come home. It takes an awful long time. The weaning can take a week or 2 weeks. So when you get to the end of a process, Scarlett generally looked like she was doing really well, and then would go straight back to the start again, which is highly frustrating and makes stays very, very long. We thought we were going to be there for a few weeks, as you do in your naivety, and it was like 4 months in the end. What were we going to say next? So anyway, her genetic things came back negative, and we decided to send her for a PET scan. So this is a little family photo of us at Great Ormond Street Hospital. That's Mikey, who's our lad, he's 8. And there's me and Kelly and Scarlett. This is probably when she's about 3 or 4 weeks of age. A PET scan is the gold standard in diagnosis of CHI. Scarlett went for a PET scan, and she's also the first NHS to have a combined PET and CT scan at UCLH. And the PET scan confirmed that her having diffuse disease. This is her going into the PET scan. There's Kate, one of the specialist nurses. So what they do to avoid a general anaesthetic, they keep the kids up very late at night, and we wake them up very early in the morning, so they just give them a light sedative to avoid the cost and the need to have a doctor on standby, so the kids are out for the count when it comes to the thing, and they don't move, and it's proved to be very successful and another sort of way of saving money. This is an example of a PET scan. So what happens is the radioactive material is absorbed where the insulin is being secreted in the mad manner that it does. So where there's a hot spot, they can tell what sort of type. So if it's throughout the pancreas, then they can call it diffuse. And obviously, if it's focal, it may be in a few select areas. But I say the focal one is the hard one because it's a little bit misleading when it actually comes to treatment. So post PET scan, we try again with diazoxide octreotide because Scarlett actually reacts quite well to therapy until the very last sort of moments. And in mid to late October, Scarlett was reacting well to treatment, and he suggested that Scarlett may be able to go home. Well, I had a phone call about 2 hours later to say she was on 50% dextrose, total parent nutrition, and Kelly was absolutely distraught, so it was another calming down situation. And we had a devastated partner on your hands. So it suggested then at the start of November that surgery is the only option. So we were told that Scarlett needed beefing up in order for surgery. And we met with Professor Piero, who's a very clever surgeon. He's actually moved to Canada now and who operates on the conjoined twins, so real clever. And he'd created a keyhole surgery rather than cutting them open like open surgery, so they could remove the pancreas, which is very difficult to get at. And a date was set for November the 17th. Cunningly, Dr. Hussein is a bit of a crafty man. He rings us up, he likes to meet every so often. He said, would you come in one Monday morning? So I came in, and I used to play hide and seek, so I'd hide and jump out on him. And he said, where is he? So I did my normal jumping out at him. He said, would you like to try this Sirolimus stuff? And we said, well, there's no harm trying, we'll just do whatever you feel is appropriate. So we started this thing, which was literally an oral medicine given twice a day. And we built it up in a system. After a couple of weeks, she started to stabilise, and we weaned her off her other things. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't connected to a machine. And we were told we could walk outside. And amazingly, this miracle had suddenly occurred. And so this is us in Russell Square opposite the hospital. Been allowed a bitter cold day, and we actually didn't believe it was true. You think you're going to be penned in the great place for ages, but we were allowed outside, and she was stable, and we went home actually on November the 17th. So really good day for us as a family. This is a bit about Sirolimus. It's an oral solution known as Repurposing. It's used primarily as an immunosuppressant drug to stop the rejection of organ and kidney transplants. Studies have shown it to have a common side effect of increasing blood sugar levels, so it counteracts what HI does, so it actually leaves them in a normal sort of blood sugar zone. This is the bottle of it that we give Scarlett, so you draw it up with a syringe, and Scarlett currently has 1 ml twice a day, so it's not a bit of an undertaking. She's got a gastrostomy, so we just give it into a gastrostomy and give it a flush. Sirolimus is known as an mTOR inhibitor. This is where I really haven't got a clue what half this means, but I'll read it. So it's a mammalian target of rapamycin. mTOR is a key signalling kinase that affects broad aspects of cellular functions, including metabolism, growth, aging and memory. I think it involves stress and other things. There's a diagram in a minute. The use of Sirolimus leads to hyperglycemia, resulting in the normal glycemia in diffuse HI patients. The mTOR thing is the little red box right in the centre of and you can see it's right in the centre of a load of pathways. You can see at the bottom the type of things, so stress, resistance, cell proliferation, metabolism, and at the top is the one for us is the insulin. And what happens is Sirolimus binds itself to the mTOR cell and stops it from working correctly. What the hell goes on after that? I really haven't got a clue. Professor Hussein's the man for that. I think they really don't know. They're trying to find out a bit more about how the mechanism works. So other uses of Sirolimus is why it's a bit of a wonder drug. I believe in genetic epileptic conditions, I can't even say anything, epileptic conditions, it stops seizures. In lung disease, in conjunction with another medicine, it makes the condition better. In cancers, it seems to stop tumours and the growth of tumours, and I think the same for this hygroma. I've got no idea what the next one is. Perhaps you could have that, I've no idea. All these things, basically I think it stops and it's a bit of a wonder drug. I've got no idea what the other disorders are. So Scarlett first tried this in November 2012 and it's been used successfully on other patients. It's now being used at other specialist centres in Manchester and around the world. I go on forums online and speak to parents in Canada, Australia and North America, so it's very good. So Scarlett was the first one on it. Everyone wants to ask me questions about how it's used. A paper was published in the New England Journal of Medicine from the centre in London, from Professor Hussain and his team. That's the name of the paper, and it showed that 4 patients with diffuse disease achieved normal blood sugar levels after 12 months, which is a big success for him. Scarlett is the first patient that successfully remained stable long term. It's just over 3.5 years to date, so that avoids major surgery to remove virtually her entire pancreas. In the early days we suffered an enormous amount of upper respiratory tract infections, which were generally in this sort of time of year. So we went to the respiratory team at Gosh, and they said that it could only be because you're taking this medicine. So what we were advised to do was to give her 5 ml of amoxicillin every day, and it seems to make her symptoms less severe, and she's been quite well as a direct result. She also has something called octreotide, which is one of the known things 4 times a day. We are looking to go over to something called lanreotide, which is once every 28-day injection. At the minute, Scarlett may be investigated for a mild form of brittle bone disease, so we're avoiding that at the moment, but it's something we're looking to do in the future. She also doesn't eat very well. A lot of the patients have severe reflux, or they have food eating problems. We don't know what it is. We're working with dietitians. Scarlett, we sit for hours on end trying to get her to eat food. She has tiny little portions. We offer our meals, and she just sits there playing with it and laughing at us, and we get absolutely stressed to the hilt. And generally speaking, we end up giving her milk down a gastrostomy. She still got her bottles of milk now, for like nearly 4 years down the line. She's in the lowest percentile, has actually gone below it now for a height, so we're investigating whether to give her some growth hormone, we're not sure. So she's in very small clothes. Her weight is 15.5 kilograms, which is, I think, on the okay side, but one of the big things is you can give them lots of high calorie food, but they're just going to end up being great children, and you've got to try and strike a balance between keeping their condition under control and not them being great, enormous people. Feeding is a big issue, and she eats nowhere near enough to keep stable. And we use a gastrostomy to provide sufficient calories to keep her stable, which we think is probably about 80% of a recommended daily allowance. There's a little family photo of us on holiday last year in Devon. I'd love it to have been somewhere exotic, but it was Devon. Scarlett had just got a cast on from a break in her tibia and fibia, and I forgot a pushchair, so I had to carry her around for a week. So that went down very well with the family. Scarlett's next step. So she's at nursery school this morning, and it's probably quite mad that I haven't told her I'm in London. We're working on an education healthcare plan for a primary school. We have a care plan in place in case of an emergency, and all the staff have to be trained. We're trying to improve her eating. We're on some dietitian course or whatever it is, a study. We're trying to get her off her octreotide injections. Scarlett hasn't suffered any developmental delay that we know of, which is a big problem, the early treatment and diagnosis, and she's been investigated for this potential bone condition. The third aspect of our thing is what we do charitably. The Children's Hyperinsulinism Fund was the first charity set up by the parents and doctors that treat the children. The funds are used to pay for research into the condition that no research was being undertaken, so the parents set up this charity. It's under the Great Ormond Street umbrella, and it's raised over $350,000 to date. The only problem we have is, because we're under Great Ormond Street, unless they have a partnership or some sort of deal with firms, we can't go and approach other private entities. So the people that set it up were mad keen to set up a further charity, which we have managed to do successfully, and last week we got our charitable status. So this allows us to approach private organisations such as Findacure or other pots of money that previously we wouldn't be able to tap into. What we also are planning to do is any surplus money will just get fed back into the research via the HI fund. Findacure approached Professor Hussain last year, and this year we're going to start a crowdfunding campaign in 27th of March, possibly. 27th of March we're starting a crowdfunding campaign, which is a way of fundraising over the social networks. We're working to establish the cost of CHI to the NHS with our Costello consultants, and we're also carrying out interviews with rare disease publications to raise awareness as well. This is our crowdfunding campaign, so this is the difference between outcomes between patients treated today and 15 years ago. On the top left is someone called Jessica Burton. Her mum set up the charity originally. Jessica unfortunately didn't have the benefit of Sirolimus and had a near total pancreatectomy. This is my daughter Scarlett in the top right hand corner, and this is our little crowdfunding team. And the next slide is a bit of a summary of the difference in outcomes. So Jessica had several major surgeries, Scarlett's had none. Scarlett only has pre-feed testing, whereas Jessica has to have hourly blood testing via a CGM device, a continuous glucose monitoring. She's now a type 1 diabetic and requires enzyme treatment. Scarlett's obviously non-diabetic and doesn't have, well, has feeding issues, but in all likelihood they'll improve over time. She has high infection risk, and Jessica has a normal infection risk. And the likelihood is, we're told that Scarlett may grow out of the condition. What that in fact probably means is the cells that are madly producing insulin may die out, and the rest of the pancreas may end up being perfectly okay. And Scarlett could have a very long term, quite a good outcome for her. So the difference between a Jessica and a Scarlett is quite pronounced, and from a cost perspective as well. There are visible and hidden costs. So obviously there's the clear ones that can be put a figure to: visiting GPs, hospitals, specialist centres. But there are hidden costs. Kelly refused to go to hospital for 2 years after her initial treatment. It's the physical time spent going and doing these things, the financial outlay to go visiting on these times, missing out. When you're being treated, Scarlett misses out on an enormous amount of things. The amount of forms you have to fill in is just mind-blowing. And loneliness, a lot of the families, the relationships split up. You find a lot of the families, they're single parents, and you don't hear that their only form of communication is online. So we try and speak to them, and as much as we can, and try and reassure them that there is hopefully a better outcome for them. And planning everything, when you go out or do anything, everything requires army-like planning. It's a nightmare. The future, we are trying to lobby our MPs, which is very difficult because they're trying to spend their pay rises, and we're trying to raise awareness. So we're trying to have a meeting with them, the health ministers, and try and make it very clear that identifying HI in the early days is very important, because they pay out a lot of money in compensation for brain injuries and things. And if they were diagnosed right first time, then they may not have to pay out all the money long term. We're also working with Findacure and Eurordis. In America, there is a thing called Zoma 358, which is about correcting faulty cells. So if they can identify the faulty cell, they inject an antibody, would that be right? And it corrects the faulty cell, and they potentially could have a normal person again, or a healthy person. Mr. Hussein has talked about Sirolimus without the immunosuppressant qualities, but it may also impact on the qualities that are treating the HI, so that's very difficult to do. There's also a Beta-Cure project, which is an EU funding project where they're trying to improve the imaging during surgery, particularly with the focal patients. So they're trying to identify the damaged or diseased areas so they can remove that entirely and leave the healthy pancreas. And then I believe Professor Hussein is starting a new drug trial at GOSH, which I'm trying to get information out of him, but it's very difficult. But at the moment I haven't got a clue what that's about, so I'm trying to preen him for information when I speak to him. That's my talk, and I hope you enjoyed listening to it. Thank you.